So we got a selfie stick the other week, and I'm just using it for the first time in this way. And I like the angle, it's pretty cool. What I kind of felt compelled to speak about was the idea of creating video. For whatever reason, inspires me. And I don't know how where it's going in some ways, and that's the fun of discovery. And instead of insisting on it looking a certain way, as I've mentioned before in other videos on my other channel, the permission slip simply to create is an enjoyable experience. And I like how video creates a feedback loop where I can immediately go back and review the content itself. Because it inspires me to think about how I can improve upon what I like most with what I'm doing in each frame of the expression. And also tuning myself back to that dimension of stillness where things arise, where the impulses come, and the words have more clarity to them. There's a lucid train of thought. That's another mantra that I'm setting as an intention to practice, is to speak only when I feel there's a relevant reason to do so. And a different train of thought, but something else that feels relevant to share, is the practice of getting used to creating content with Yana in the picture, as opposed to doing this on my own, which is what I was engaging in for my Limitless channel. And being okay with the pauses between thoughts, that instead of concerning myself with whether or not the audience is going to continue watching, because Yana represents the audience in some ways, it's more important that the original spark of the desire to create something on camera has found its full extinction point by the end. That there's not any lingering threads that want to be flushed out. So this is a video that is kind of explorative in the sense that I'm feeling into different thoughts that have come to me. and adding more clay to the conversation of being deliberate about how I shape my world through my words, through my energetic vibrational state of emission. And camera, video captures the true current state of my awareness, my being, and serves as a mirror for me to evolve. Over the last 24 hours, a lot of my mind chatter has dissipated around what's going to happen come June 1st, because that's when we're completing our house sitting here in San Ramon. And the conversation of how we're going to support ourselves and all of these, quote, concerns, because in essence, those challenges get resolved from clarity of mind. And clarity of mind is achieved by disengaging from those tempting concerns. It's almost as if the eureka moment arises from silence, from stillness, from presence, from reconnecting with the breath and the environment and the organic growth of nature and how light ultimately manifests on the physical plane as through infinite forms, knowing that everything comes from the single point and then expands outward. And all these spiritual concepts are helpful when there's a lot of confusion or there's a lot of concern or anxiety or quote-unquote dysfunctional energy, when there's cross currents of thought that feel like you're being thrown in every which direction. So settling back into that position for me has been very helpful, and trusting that I'm doing the right thing even though the world may not approve of it. Why am I not being productive, proactive? You know, I've got all these responsibilities. Why am I not addressing them? But I would prefer to know that every step I'm taking is one in the direction of balance rather than busyness. And knowing that things get resolved on timelines that sometimes appear too far out in the distance for our minds to grok. And yet the paradox is, by disengaging from them, the length of frames that we have to move through for these challenges to be resolved often shortens, because we're not so sucked into it. It doesn't look like the entire world is this one nodal point that we're plugged into. Instead, we can see that, oh, there's that. There's also these different opportunities that if I plugged into one of these up here, it might resolve all of this over here. So it's gaining more spatial awareness in terms of your consciousness and the way your energy is being dissipated, or the way you're channeling your energy. So it's like the mind is sucked in all of these different directions, and a commitment to reconnecting with stillness brings it back to that point where you watch where these thoughts are tempting you to go in the direction of. And you can absolve or address these ones that are out of alignment by continuing to move upward and facing them at higher levels of awareness. It's like that quote from Albert Einstein about, we cannot solve a problem on the same level of thinking that created it. We have to elevate our awareness. And I think that I'm going to do this. I'm going to continue sharing until I'm back. This is going to be a long form piece of content, because I haven't done one of these in a while. Just going in a circle, circling back right now. So probably 13 minutes. And it's just to exercise that muscle for me, to get familiar with that feeling of being able to continue a line of thought for a prolonged period of time for the fun of it. To get comfortable with being on camera, to get comfortable with speaking my truth, honoring my desire for creative expression, because this is my art form. Free flow of ideas, and letting them pull me, make new connections through the process of articulating them. Switching hands because my left is getting tired. But yeah, I've done videos upwards of 45 minutes to an hour in the past. And I haven't really flexed that creative stamina. And I just like the idea of filling 28 minutes or so of video content for myself. For, as I mentioned yesterday on the Create a Life Worth Sharing video, the sake of being able to go back and review it and see where I was at one point in my past, because it is also like a journal entry. It's like, well, this is where I was at this time. This is the thoughts that I was thinking. These were the thoughts that I was thinking. And honoring the human experience, appreciating the physicality, capturing the different inputs that at this date, this time, are shaping the conversation. So the audience is just as much part of the discovery or conversation as I am, in the sense that I don't know what is going to arise. And I may be even boring people at this point, because they're thinking, okay, so he plans to be on here for the next 10, 11, 12 minutes. He better say something exciting or I will have wasted my time. Which brings up a practice that I was employing and recently stopped, but may pick it up again, of writing 3 pages every day, long hand with a pen and paper, and not having any attachment to what's shared, but just purging whatever wants to be revealed, expressing how I am feeling emotionally. And this was a practice that I picked up from a book called The Artist's Way. It was written in the 70s, I think, by Julia Cameron. And I put it down as a practice just recently because it became too heady. It's like, I need to be an artist, so I need to create, and so I need to fixate on, doing the things that are going to make me into someone who can really be awesome. And that was an indicator that I was getting fixed. I was getting stuck in the mind, in the concern for how I would be perceived by others. And it became mechanical. Just like my meditation practice, I dropped it, and then it came back around into my life as a tool that I could utilize for different applications than what I was doing so before. And I dropped meditation because of the same thing. It was becoming mechanical. It's like I wouldn't even think about how I was feeling before I tuned in with that practice, whether or not I needed it. And yet, now, because I've stepped away and it circled back around and pulled me into it again, I come at it from a conscious angle. It has a fresh perspective. And I'm more sensitive to how it's being applied as a tool, as a resource, as a charging mechanism. A good analogy that I like to use for meditation is it's like ionization. It cleans up the air or the mind. It's like you're breathing more consciously, and in doing so, the thoughts themselves become more precise, and you're more consciously aware of how your energy is moving through you. And ionization, in chemical terms or scientific terms, is the removal of, I don't know what particle, but removing the negative energy, essentially, and coming back into balance. Another impulse of thought that came up just now is along the line of negative and positive energy, negative, positive motion, this spectrum, this range, not treating negative or positive as anything but sensation in the body. It's like not getting too sucked into how awesome life is or how shitty it is, and holding that balance point. Because in doing so, we can align ourselves with the eternal nature of our being or the human experience at a higher state of consciousness or awareness. It's like that God realization, the unchanging nature amongst the waves on the surface of the ocean. And the paradox of it is, when you are in balance, you can fully appreciate all the sensations, whether they be negative or positive. And in doing so, you simultaneously become more physicalized, more plugged into the now moment, more consciously aware of the sensorial inputs through your five senses, and you're also completely disengaged from it. It's the yin-yang paradox. It's the transcendent state where you are the instrument through which the emotions are fully expressing themselves, and you're okay with wherever it takes you. And it's a masterful state to be in. And I waver, but even just talking about it brings it back into my awareness as a truth or a touchstone that when I'm compelled to get sucked in and I'm afraid of where it takes me, that's the immediate trigger for me just to let go and have it pull me deep into that state. Because then it will finally reach an extinction point at one point. Eventually the depression or the frustration or the anger or the bliss, elation, ecstasy, they all come to an end. And what happens is, if you're stationed here, you see that they're just moving forms. Emotion is a form that we can appreciate by riding as opposed to grasping, attaching ourselves to. So I think that's it. Again, this was just a journal entry for me to practice long form content and flush out some ideas and share where I'm at. Take it easy.